Hello, people of the party. My name's Ryan. I'm the founder of the Hex Bones Tabletop Club, and today I want to talk about the different character classes available in Dungeon Crawl Classics. This isn't going to be an exhaustive list of different abilities for the characters. This is more like think of it as a primer video for kind of what each class is about, what they can do, and maybe how they're different from previous RPGs you played. The idea here is that if you've never played before, you can watch this video and kind of figure out what type of class you would like to play. So we'll start off first with the Cleric here. I've got it pulled up. And the Cleric is going to be your stereotypical holy badass person. You pick an imaginary deity and you get magical blessings in the form of spells. So they're a spellcaster. You can wear armor and you're going to be the token healer of the group. Historically and stereotypically, clerics are the healers, and in DCC you also get lay on hands, which is a way that you can heal your party members. So, as we're talking about spell casting, let's go ahead and pull up a spell real quick, and we'll just real quickly go over that. Let's look up the darkness spell, for example. So, if you have this spell, Dungeon Crawl Classics, they don't have spell slots, and clerics are no exception to that. Clerics have different penalties for rolling poorly on this table, but the idea is that you can keep casting these spells as long as you're as long as you're rolling high enough. You can just keep on going. So as you can see, on this particular darkness spell, if you roll a 1 to 11 on your spell check, which the judge will ask you for when you decide to cast a spell, you fail. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, if you fail with a natural 1, then you're punished in some way, shape, or form. And so the cleric, they fall out of favor with their gods, or their deity, I should say. And every time you roll a natural 1, then your critical failure range expands. Now if you roll a 1 and a 2, it's a critical failure. And it's kind of a press your luck type game, whether or not you want to continue casting these spells or not. And eventually they call it disapproval, that stacking mechanism there. That starts to fall away over time, and you'll get your spells back. But the idea is that if you keep casting spells and roll poorly, eventually your critical failure range could get up into the point where you would normally be casting these spells, like, for example, a 12 or a 13 in this example. It's a fun little element of push your luck with the cleric and really all of the spell casting. The cleric is special though with the disapproval of their deity. Let's see here. They also have the classic cleric turn undead in Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's called turn unholy, but it's the same deal. If you come across a group of undead, you can try to scare them away. As I said, badass holy person. Okay, so now let's see. Let's move on. Let's talk about the thief next, huh? Let's scroll back up here. The thief. I mean, just look at this cool art. This is a perfect example of why this game is awesome, because the way that it plays really feels like the artwork that you look at in the book, and it's just awesome. Okay, so the thief, they are your sneaky sneaks. They've got all kinds of special abilities in here. They're the ones that are going to be really good at picking locks, sneaking around stuff. They have an ability called backstab, where you can hide for a little bit, sneak up behind somebody, and you get an automatic critical hit. They're pretty cool. Let's see here. We'll move on to the next one here. You can sneak around. You can hide in shadows. There's pickpockets. They're agile and nimble. So they can they have climb sheer surfaces. They're really good at finding and disabling traps, etc., etc. Everything that you would expect from a sneaky thief stereotype, you can pretty much do in this game. They pretty well have it covered. Let's see here. The luck mechanism that we had talked about before, where if and the luck, you can do it after you roll. So if the judge asks you to roll a dice and it doesn't come up exactly like you want to, you can decide to burn some luck, which permanently reduces your luck score. You can get it back, but it is permanently reduced for the time being. Permanently then, right? But in the thief's case, for every point of luck that you burn to try to increase your roll, you actually get to roll a separate dice to determine that, which we can see here on this page. So if you're a level 1, for example, you get to roll a d3 for every point of luck you burn. So you burn 1 point of luck. Potentially, you could add 3 to your roll, depending on how that one comes across. Thieves also, they also gain back 1 point of luck each day. I know I just said that it was permanent, and that's not correct. It's permanent for everybody else. The judge can grant it to you, but the thief is going to slowly gain back the luck that they burn. Because, they're lucky. They're thieves. Okay, now we'll move on to the warrior. So for the warrior, you want to think Conan the Barbarian. And I'm talking Arnie, not Aquaman. The warrior gets the best attack bonuses, the highest hit points, and are most likely going to get the most attack actions. And, all of those are blanket statements. You can always get funky die when you're making your character, and et cetera, and et cetera. But, if we're trying to quantify these, right? So the warrior is cool because if you're playing a standard RPG, you would if you're a warrior and you've got a sword and you're trying to hit somebody, you'd usually add a specific modifier to whatever rolls you're making. DCC doesn't fly that way, so you get what they call a deed dice, and you roll that every time you decide to make an attack. So as you can see here, you've got your for level 1, you get a plus D3. So if you've got a sword, you decide to hit somebody, you're going to roll your D20, your standard action dice, just like you normally would, and you're also going to roll a D3, and that becomes your entire attack roll. And then if it hits, you also get to add that D die to your damage. So it's cool, and it makes it all feel a little more organic than opposed to just okay, I got an 18, and my strength modifier is +2. It's not like that. You get this extra dice. It's really cool. So another thing that is the mighty deeds, and this is what the creativity gets to come in for being a warrior, I guess. So we'll just use one of these examples. So, like, if you're fighting opponents on a staircase, and the character uses a sword to stab an opponent and then lever him over the edge of the staircase. Or later, that same character tried attacking the foe's legs to knock him off the edge of a cliff or whatever. All of those things, you can say them, you declare them as your mighty deed, and that happens with your deed dice. And typically, the judge will tell you, based on what you rolled on your deed dice, whether or not you actually did that thing or not. There's some cool examples of deed dice things that at least when I was playing other RPGs, you would describe these things, but there wasn't a mechanic, so to speak, for determining whether or not you did it. Usually, you'd have some other kind of roll check or something like that. But this one, for example, you got the hit, and the you rolled high enough on your D die, which I believe is 3. You have to get at least a 3 for the mighty deed to succeed. I'm not certain about that. But anyways, this guy, you're fighting a beast with a scorpion tail, and the character attempts to chop off the tail with his deed dice. So that's a really cool thing. It's kind of like a little extra, you can add some flavor to it. Okay. Also, they have something, one more thing on the warriors, they have something called threat range, which means that you get critical hits on a 19 or a 20. And that increases as you get higher levels, as you can see in this table here. So, at level 5, it becomes an 18 or a 20. And as I explained in my previous video, there are critical hit tables that get to do extra cool, crazy things in DCC. So that threat range is cool. Anytime you roll a natural 19 or a 20, at least up until you're level 5, then you get it's like a super crit. It's awesome. Or it increases your chances to crit. Anyways, warrior, badass guy with a sword. They're great. Okay, bam. Now we're on to wizards. Okay, so, and this is coming directly from this book. Wizards control magic. At least they attempt to. And that's right out of the book. So your wizards are not going to be your fighters, and magic is going to be your jam in this class. It's all about the spells. So like the cleric that we discussed, there are no spell slots. You roll to cast and check the table for results. Failing the checks here is how you lose your spells for the day, and they come back every other day, or every day. Sorry, in game they come back every day. If you're playing at my table every session, you're going to get your spells back, unless we're playing a long session. Maybe you'll get them back before then or there. So let's take a look. Let's look at the magic missile spell here and just see what this is all about. Okay, yeah. So let's check this guy out. Okay, so you roll your spell check, and you get to add your caster level, which is going to be your character level, and then you're going to add your intelligence modifier to it to get these rolls. But as you can see here, if you roll a 1 while you're trying to cast your spell, then you're going to lose it for the day, and some worse things are going to happen to you. If you roll between a 2 and 11, you lose it. So the wizard specifically, the cleric gains the disapproval, and it makes it easier for you to fail as this is going on. But the wizard, if you fail, some of these spells, you lose them for the day. Actually, I would say almost all of the spells you lose them for the day when you fail them. And then, as you can see, you just keep adding stuff, and things get crazier and crazier as you roll higher on your spell checks. But back to the number 1, the critical failure there. So now, not only do you lose your spell and nothing happened, but now some bad stuff's going to happen to you. So it tells you what to do here in these instructions, but you'll go back to this, and then it will tell you, you've got to roll these things since you failed. If did it say corruption? I think it said corruption, just so we have a very specific example. Yeah. So, if you roll another d6 and you have to roll on the corruption table, the caster's hands and forearms change colors to match the shades of the most commonly cast magic missile. And you roll onto it now. Or from now on, every time they cast magic missile, the caster turns invisible for 1d6 rounds. Just lots of crazy things can happen. There's same deal for misfires. So the magic system is just nuts in this game, and it's so much fun if you lean into it. Let's see. Also for the wizard, let's go back up to the wizard page here. Let's see. So when you get new spells, this is more of a high level thing, but there are specific things that can happen when you learn a new spell that always applies to your spell. So that's another really cool thing. I'm not going to go into that here. But the wizard, so they have their luck mechanic, and then they also have something called spell burn. So that's spell burn. You can permanently, it's not permanent. Spell burn, you can burn down other ability scores to increase the roll of casting a spell. The catch here is that you have to do it before you roll. If you're trying to burn luck, you can do it after, but if you're doing a spell burn, you have to do it before you roll your spell check. And the idea being you can burn off strength, agility, or stamina at 1-to-1. So, if you decide that you want to spell burn 3 points of strength or whatever to increase your spell, then, you roll the dice and you get to add 3 to it. And you're already getting to add your intelligence modifier and your caster level when you roll. So you start adding a lot of stuff. But anyways, spell burn is kind of like the idea thematically is like blood magic. Old pulp movies, you see a wizard cut his hand and the blood makes his spell stronger. It's that kind of thing. But so you could turn yourself into a husk of a character, just nothing left. The party's got to carry you out of here because you can't walk or whatever. You can do that kind of thing if you really need a spell to go off, or as we looked at those tables, if you're trying to get a much higher result, and that kind of stuff is awesome. And there's also a table you have to roll on that different things, or you don't have to roll on, but you can roll on to describe what's happening to your character. And then one other thing that I wanted to share about the wizard is the corruption. So as we had talked about before, when you're rolling on these things, on the spell tables, sometimes some of those you had to roll on a corruption table if you fail a spell in a particular way. And you have to roll on this table. There's major, minor corruption tables. It'll tell you exactly where you need to go, and the judge will help you do that. But I mean, essentially, you can alter the way that your character is permanently. You know, if you roll enough, like this guy at the bottom here, he's got, I don't know, he's got horns growing out, he's got a real bad hunchback, and he's got bugs all over him. It's really cool thematically thing, and this stuff happens intentionally. The idea is to make magic seem really dangerous, but really what it does is just make it absolutely banana crazies and awesome. So wizards are a lot of fun. Okay, so now let's talk about a dwarf. A dwarf is a lot like a warrior. Let's see. So really the only difference is they also get the mighty deeds. And the big difference here is that they get a shield bash attack that they can use every time. So they're short, stout, probably bearded, and they're probably a little bit mean. Really hit those fantasy tropes here. In this game, they're known for being excellent underground contractors. So dwarves get special kind of bonuses when you're doing things underground. Whether you're detecting traps, you're looking for a shifting wall or whatever. And in-game, they can smell gold and gems. So they kind of become a treasure bloodhound when you're in an underground dungeon or cave or whatever. Same deal as the warrior. There's no standard attack modifier. You get the deed dice and the mighty deeds, which we can pull that up here. Yep, same deal. They tell you what your deed die is. Let's see, and the shield bash, you can use that anytime, and I believe it's a D3. It's just an extra attack that you get to do on top of your regular attack. And dwarf, as you level up, you eventually start to be able to take multiple actions. The warrior can do this too. Actually, I think most of the classes can do this too, but as I said, not getting into details, this is just high-level stuff here. Okay, so after the dwarf, we'll talk about the elf. So the elf in DCC is the wizard warrior hybrid. So you can use them as martial classes, or you can use them as spellcasters. They get spells. They work the same way that wizards do, with regards to the magic. And the elf, I'm not going to go over it because that's essentially it. It's a warrior and a wizard combined, and it's not as good at either of those things as the individual classes, but you get both in this. So it's the elf is a good pick if that's your kind of play style there. I know I'm breezing over him, but the elf is cool if you like to do both things. So now we'll move on to the halfling. So the halflings in DCC are really pretty rad. They're lucky little buggers. So halflings are masters of two-weapon fighting. So usually a character, a warrior, for example, can use two weapons at once. They can double fist. But there's a decent disadvantage to it depending on what your agility score is. So the halfling gets a boost to all this, and they always get to use 2d16. And the disadvantages can be significant. I know that I'm just throwing this out there, but it can be significant if you have a poor agility score and you're trying to use a weapon in each hand. So they get that d16. In addition, they also get an auto hit if you roll a natural 16 on the d16 dice when you're attacking with these. They get an auto hit, and it's a crit on a 16. So you get to use that sweet crit table. You also only fumble if you're in this situation if both dice come up as natural one. So the halfling, this leads into what I'm about to say. The halfling is all about luck. They are notoriously lucky. So the halflings, when you decide to burn 1 point of luck to get that modifier boost that we've already talked about, every point of luck you burn, you get 2 added to your roll. So it's essentially double what everybody else gets besides the thief. The thief gets to roll the dice. But the halfling can decide to burn luck for other people. So if the halfling is in your party, it's good luck. They can give you stuff. If the warrior's trying to make a hit, the halfling can give him some luck to give him a little bit of boost. It's really cool. It adds a little bit of camaraderie to it. And in DCC, they call it a good luck charm ability, and it's really awesome when you're in a jam. And that's it. That covers all the base classes for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I hope that this has been helpful. I know I ranted a little bit, and as I said, if any of these if any of these classes, these tropes, if they jump out to you, hop on, get the free version of these rules. You can kind of read through them, or just pop over to Goodman Games website and buy this book because, as you can see, the artwork is just awesome. There's a ton of stuff in it. Here's this too. This is, it's a monster of a tome here, but it's got everything you need to play the game. There's even an adventure or two in here. I hope that does it. If you want more details on any one of these specific classes, like I said, use those resources above. But I hope that this gave you a decent primer. Maybe you have an idea of what you want to play now and kind of how it works in Dungeon Crawl Classics. And as always, if anybody's interested in joining, you can hit me up here or wherever else. Join our Discord server where we're hosting online games every week for DCC. I'm Ryan for the Hex and Bones Tabletop Club, and I'll see you around.